All right, great. Good evening, everyone. For those of you who are watching through a recording, good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening. My name is Caitlin. I am the Civic Engagement Coordinator here at the Korean Resource Center, and we are super excited to present our Voices for Tomorrow resume and cover letter workshop. Yay! We're really proud and privileged to be presenting this to you all today, and I would love to introduce our speakers for today. Tina, who will be presenting on the resume portion, and Maya Akin, who will be presenting on our cover letter portion. So without further ado, I'm going to let them take it away. Tina?
Hi, my name is Tina, and I am a Voice for Tomorrow intern with KRC, and I will be covering resumes. And I'll let it.
Sorry. Hi, my name is Maya and Akin, and I will also be presenting on cover letter and resume. So I will share my screen while Tina takes the lead.
So to start off, you may ask, what is the difference between a cover letter and a resume? And you can see in this slide that there's an example or like three images. So on the very left, there's an example of a cover letter and how a cover letter would be formatted. And then on the very right, there is a resume, and you can see how a resume is typically formatted. And in the center explains the main differences. And a cover letter is essentially a letter, sort of like an introduction to who you are, and it's like sort of supplemental to your application. So when you submit your resume and application, you have like the option to submit a cover letter, and this should be around 3 to 4 paragraphs, and it should be like in a opening, but still maintaining like professional tone and addressing the company or the group and the position that you're applying to. And then a resume is usually mandatory when you're applying a job, and it should be very distinct. So it should match and match the job that you're applying, and really marketing your strengths for the role. So what is a resume? A resume is a document created and used by a person to present their background, skills, and accomplishment. An important note is that a resume is not the same as a CV, which is curriculum vitae, I believe, which is like Latin for course of life, and a CV is more for like let's say if you're applying for a research position, you're going to write all of your publications and all of your researches, while like a resume is typically just 1 or maximum 2 pages, and should really only cater towards like the position that you're applying. And so again, like, what is the main goal of a resume? A resume is really showcasing your skills, your experiences, and really catering your overall resume for the job that you want. And it's sort of like a background of what you have done and why you are interested in this job role, like through your resume. And your resume is creating like a narrative, telling a quick story or like a first impression of yourself. So it's very important to write a very good resume that that you'll have like a chance to self-advertise who you are, where you have been and what you have done. And it's really crucial to every person's career. So essentially you want to ask yourself or see if your resume, like, what does the reader or recruiter see from their point of view? And a resume is essentially what you will be judged by, and it's your first impression. So it's really important that your resume has like no mistakes. You want to like write it, take time writing it, and like analyze it and make sure that it's good to go before submitting it in. So how to start making a resume? So first, the very important thing, which some people might forget to include, is their name. Like your name is really important, because you want the person reading it to know like whose resume is this. So it's very important to put your name. So on the right, there's like a photo of what a resume, like the format would be, and you can see your name. It should be on the very top, and it should be clear. And then the second thing that's very important is having your contact information. And typically, for your contact information, it should be email and phone number. And I know like some people would put their address, or even like any additional personal information, but what is most recommended is putting your email address, and then if you would like to put your phone number, because it's very important that, let's say if a recruiter wants to reach out to you, that they are able to reach out to you. Oh, and another one is, depending on the job role you're applying to, or could be optional and could be helpful, is providing your LinkedIn link, or like a website link if you have like a personal website. And the next thing would be objective or summary, and this is sometimes not necessary, but it would be nice to include of objective of like the role that you're applying for, and a little bit about yourself. And you could list your objectives or like target, like what you want to, what is your outcome, and if you were to receive the job role. And then the next thing, which is, it doesn't have to necessarily be on the very top, because sometimes, let's say if you have more work experience, that could go on the top, and then education can go more towards the bottom. So it's really like top to bottom, like ordering relevance to the job and where you are in your current life. So if you have more work experiences, more projects, then you could include that. And or like another thing is that, let's say if you are not a student anymore, then it wouldn't be so relevant to include the education on the top, but at the bottom instead. And usually for education, you want to put your university name, and you could put the city and state, but that's optional. And you could make sure to write your degree. So if it's like a bachelor, master's, and then the time frame, or like, let's say if you're currently a student, you could put current, but you want to put like when you received that degree, or and so on. And then for work experience, you want to make sure to not only include the job title, the company name, but the location, and also you want to include the date of employment. And what would be helpful and usually works best if you include a couple bullet points, 2 or 3 bullet points of sort of like what accomplishments in that kind of work experience. Like you don't want to necessarily put like what you did for that job role, or you don't want to copy like the exact, like the job application, what the role is, but you really want to like showcase like what was your experience from that specific job. So it could be good or bad, but it could be something that you overcame in that job, and it would be really crucial to include that in your job, under your job title as a bullet point. And then another thing is including your activities, which is like any volunteer work or interest or any projects that would be relevant to the job role. And then the next thing, which is optional as well, is putting your accomplishments, so any honors or awards that you may have received, including your publications or any kind of research you have done. And the next thing is certificates. So this can
Tina, I believe you're muted.
Yeah, Tina, you're muted. Sorry about that.
And so it's like certificates would be helpful. So let's say if you're applying for like, let's say software engineer, and then your major was like, let's say chemistry, that wouldn't be like so relevant, but you could list the courses that you took to prove that you have like the capability to be like a software engineer, like some, like let's say like Python or like C++ or Java. You can include those like online certificates or any courses that you have taken. And yeah, so it's always like really important to also utilize each portion or every part of the paper, like the resume. So you can see like on the right, this is just like a format, so it doesn't really show like the resume, but typically resume, you really want to utilize every single space. So make sure the page setup is sort of like at a minimum, like maybe 0.5 instead of 1. So, having like gaps is not very good, but you want to utilize every page of your resume. And again, your resume should be 1 to 2 pages, depending the job role that you're applying. And just remember that no resume is ever alike, and there's no standard or sort of like a perfect resume. Everyone is like different. Everyone has like different careers, different career journeys. And you just really want to make sure that your resume stands out in a way that it portrays like who you are and like who you are, and sort of it's going to be like a first impression of yourself. And so another thing which is very important is while writing your resume, you really want to ask yourself certain questions. So it could be, does your resume answer these questions? So making a resume is very stressful because it could be overwhelming, but it's very important to make a plan. Don't like stress over it, and know that you have a lot of resources online, and make sure that your resume hits every point. So like writing your name is really important. Having contact, can the recruiter or hiring manager contact you easily? And does your resume show that what is your goal and what you're interested in? So it could be your objective and summary, like what role are you interested currently? And the next thing is, what is your focus and what are you studying, or like what kind of major or industry are you in? Or like if you're even a student, because I notice a lot of like recruiters or managers, they sometimes they are looking for student or only recent graduates, or someone who's have already finished graduate school. So it is important to include your education to let the recruiter manager know where you are in your career. And also writing what are your major responsibilities. So what has been like the biggest challenges you face in accomplishing them? How did it turn out? So that's sort of like the things that you should ask yourself when writing like the bullet points for work experiences. And you want to write like, what were your results? You could include like your numbers, or anything that you were successful in, any projects in that job role. And another thing is, you want to portray like, what are you most proud of, or like accomplish in that role? And that's what you want to write in like the bullet points of the work experiences. And another thing would be helpful to your resume is write for skills and certificates. So you want to write the tools, skills, or knowledge, or what kind of software do you have or utilize. So include your technical and non-technical skills. And another thing is that is also optional is activities and accomplishments. So when looking at a resume, you want to showcase your experiences. What have you done or accomplished? What makes you like motivated? And yeah, and also again, just remember that a resume is also a work in process. So you would always, like every sort of opportunity, you want to like update your resume as soon as possible, and never like strive for like perfection in writing a resume. Just really try your hardest and take like a deep breath and take step by step. And there's always plenty of resources available online. Um, and yes, it's important to make a plan. And so yes, there's always like, I notice when a lot of people write their resumes, there's always like sort of like regrets that they wish that they didn't include in the resume, but that's sort of like the learning process. And it's sort of like, and also you never know like who the recruiting manager, who is going to review like your resume, like if they're looking for that. So it's really, you just want to try your best when writing your resume. So the do's and don'ts of a resume. Again, there's no perfect resume, but what you can do is avoid certain mistakes that a lot of recruiters or managers would not like for you to include on your resume. So major don't is having misspelling or like including slang or abbreviations, or your resume being inconsistent, because it can look very unprofessional. The recruiter might question, does this person like have the capability to do this role? If they're just misspelling their resume, it's sort of like maybe they're not trying as hard, because your resume is your first impression of what the person has of you. So you want to make sure that your resume is very professional and shows like the best of yourself. And another thing a lot of people often think about, but at the same time don't really think about, it's more so about like the quality than like the quantity, or more so like the content than like the overall appeal or like the design or color. So sometimes including so much like design can be like overwhelming, or trying to be like aesthetic, but it's very important to just look at the content and see if this is what you're including is like the best that you can include, and make sure that there's no odd font font size or like any font styles. You want to keep it very simple, Arial or Times New Roman. Another thing is like a lack of details. You don't want a lot of white spaces, or just include like, oh, like for example, let's say you were a cashier at Starbucks, and then that's all. You should really include like more like bullet points, like what were you able to do, or what was your accomplishments in that role. And another thing is including like any false or outdated information that looks quite bad. So make sure to always include like the most updated information, and um, include like be truthful in your resume. So like sometimes, like let's say if you speak like 3 languages, but you're more so like beginner in like 2 of them, but if you write like intermediate, like they might ask you later if you can speak that language. So just always be like truthful in your resume. And another thing is, don't include like too many details. Like it's resume and not so much like a CV. You don't need a lot of pages. So it's just catering towards like a specific job role. And also don't include like anything like personal, like not like including your address or like a photo of yourself. You should be worried of your own safety. It's not very necessary. And then for the do's, it would be sort of like the opposite of everything that you wouldn't do. So all the don'ts, but opposite, which is the do's. So of course the do's you want to limit to 1 or 2 pages, and make sure to update it constantly, and always customize your resume towards applying the position that you want. So let's say if you're applying to like 3, let's say 3 jobs, maybe in some cases you'll be able to use that resume for all those 3 jobs, but it's best to sort of like tweak each application towards like the jobs that you want. Maybe like each company might have like a different outlook, or like a different like sort of like position. So it's important to make sure that your resume really caters towards the position that you want. And again, always like proofread your resume, and And a tip that I have noticed is making your resume black and white. So sometimes, like, some people like to include color, but you want to make it easy to read as possible. So um, it would be crucial to have like a black and white format, very simple, one font, and a font size that is readable. And overall, like, be consistent in your resume. And and like another tip for do's and don'ts is that remember that the person that's reading your application or your resume will only take 2 to 3 minutes to skim over your resume. So you really want to make sure to make it not only readable, but you want to make sure to highlight all like the good points of your resume. So can like a person read your resume in 2 to 3 minutes and then understand like all um, understand like what you're writing in your resume? That's a question that you should ask. And yeah, and then there's a meme on the very top, and it's like a Twitter post, and it's like, I present to you a real actual resume my office has received. And you can see like they just included their name, email, and then like work experience and like IDK, as in like I don't know. Like that is very like very unprofessional. That's like not even trying, and it seems like very bad. Like you want to make like the very best impression that you can. Like let's say that person has like connections, so you really want to try your hardest and really show your skills and highlight that. So this is right here is an example of a high school resume. So the question is, what if I don't have work experience? Maybe we have like family obligation, maybe we're still in school, or there's like some barriers where we don't have a lot of work experience, and that's okay, because you can always emphasize the other things that you have done. So it could be any part-time jobs, any roles that you've done, any school projects, or any extracurriculars like volunteering, any activities, or any kind of accomplishment you may have, or like skills that you have, or even like including certificates. So there's plenty of online resources where you can, like Coursera, they have like certificates, and you can always apply financial aid for that. And you can always like enroll in a course, and then have the certificate on your resume, and that could be an additional thing. So as you can see on the very left, what a high school resume, and I don't think would be necessarily like a high school resume. It could just be someone who has less work experience. Everyone's different and no one's perfect, and it's okay to have no experience because we all start somewhere. So you can always like emphasize your education, like what kind of like involvement are you in, or like what courses did you take like at your school, and your GPA. You can always highlight that, and any major achievements, like the involvement that you're in, again, like skills, non-technical or technical skills, and include any awards, honors, or any like sort of achievement that you may have. And you want to make sure that your resume is always very focused on the content itself. So you really want to take like multiple times. You want to take like, I wouldn't say hours, but you want to take like time to just read over your resume and see like if is there any mistakes, and be consistent and don't give up and just work at it. And then on the very right corner, there's like a meme. It says like, me applying to job with zero work experience and nothing to do, nothing to put on my resume. And I believe this is like from a TV show. But it says like his name, Alex, his age, like 25, and then like what his occupation is, and it's just former child. Like that's actually that's kind of funny, but you wouldn't want to do that in like a real professional setting. It could be deemed as like unprofessional. Like maybe you could write like if you were like a babysitter, you can write like you were a babysitter, or you can even write your student or whatever that you're doing at the moment instead of former child. and yeah, so always a reminder is just be consistent, and always work at your resume. So right here, I have like two examples of a good resume. So on the very left, I have this is actually a resource from Glassdoor, which shout out to Glassdoor, because you can there's plenty of resources on glassdoor.com, but also you can they have plenty of like resources on how to format your resume. And as you can see, like in this resume at the very top, number one, you want to include your name. Number two, you want to include your contact information. Make sure that the person reading your resume can easily contact you. Three, you can list your skills that would apply to the job role that you're applying. And then four, writing your work experiences. It could be like current or any past or however, and of course, make sure to include the job title, the date that you worked, like let's say from this to this time frame, and yes, including like the job role, and then with the bullet points again. So it could be like 2 to 3 bullet points of like what were you able to achieve in that role, or what did you do, and then 7 is education. So as you can see, this person graduated, so they put their education at the very bottom. And then at the very bottom, 8 is including any additional experience that you may have, something to include. And then on the right is an example of someone's resume. So this person, they included their current occupation or like the role that they want, which is like software engineer, and they make sure to include their information. So their email, you could even have like GitHub, which is like a website or like a platform to include like your projects. But they include their address, which is something that is not necessary. So just like be cautious of that. Make sure to not include so much personal information. Just include like your email or maybe like website. But unless it's like mandatory, then you can include your address. But please don't include your address, because you don't know who's like reading it, and it's not necessary, and maybe like the person will overlook that. So it's not important. And with that kind of space, you can include more things. So like instead of the address, you can include more interests, more projects, more work experience or skills that you may have. And then work experience, as this person is already like working, they have like their work experience on the top. So you can see that they put their work experience on the top, but their education at the very bottom, because they had already graduated. So maybe if you're like in school and you have less work experience, you can put education at the very top. But so it's always like sort of where you are in your career journey. If you want to include certain points like on the top or at the bottom. And then the next thing is that they put skills and then projects.
Oh, it looks like we have a question. Would just inputting the city and state be okay instead of the whole address?
Yes, I think that would be actually a good choice, to put your city and state instead of whole address. I noticed that it's more so that the recruiter can see if they need to relocate you. So if you're like from another state or even another country, like do they have to prepare anything for you? But yeah, and then skills. So you can see this person is they're a software engineer, so you can put like the skills that they put is really relevant to the software engineer role and any projects that they have. And yeah, but I think this resume is really a good example of what like a good, or like a resume without like any kind of like mistakes, or like it is sort of like generally what a good resume would be. So yeah, and you really want to, so again, you want to put your name, don't forget your name, and don't forget to include your contact information. It could be email, phone number, and then if you would like, you can include like sort of like the city and state that you're from, and then include your LinkedIn website link, or like GitHub if you like are applying for like a software engineering role, and then including objective or summary, sorry. But that's not necessary if you already have like work experience. You want to always like put what that really highlights your skills. So always, like if you have something else to put, you can always highlight the current things that you have now. Sorry.
Looks like we have another question, Tina. Will you be able to take it?
The resume on the left has a section called additional experience. What's the difference between that and the prior work experience? So I would say like work experience maybe is more like a job, while like additional experience can be like volunteering or something outside or school. So it's not necessarily like sort of like a work or like a job, like a official role. Or it could be like a hobby, or like it could be your interest. And yeah, and yeah. So moving on. Oh yes. So key takeaways in writing your resume. There's always a lot of tips, but I believe like the main tips that you should always remember is really researching and planning ahead and spending the time on writing your resume, because it will show to the person that's reading your resume. You really want to cater your resume towards the job that you're applying. So make sure that this job, you know, would fit perfectly. I don't know, your resume would fit perfectly with like the job that you're applying for. And then another thing is quality over quantity. So it's like more so the content over the design. So so I guess it's nice to make your resume aesthetically pleasing, having a nice design, but it wouldn't have sort of any point if the content is sort of lacking. So you always want to make sure that what you're putting in your resume is really your best work and really highlighting the best parts of yourself. Like what kind of experiences like have you experienced, and like why is it relevant to this job? Or when again you want to proofread your resume, read it out loud, like have other people read your resume. So it could be your friends, family, or your classmates, counselor, teacher, professor, or anyone. So it could be like from a different perspective, and that's really important. And also utilizing free online resources. There's always like Google search is your best friend. There will always be like resources galore, like even like on YouTube, which moves on to like the resources like YouTube. You could Google search, go on Indeed.com or even Glassdoor.com, or search up resume-resource.com is a good resource as well. There's always like always plenty, and you could even search up resume examples. And then another thing that would be nice if you can maybe like reach out to sort of like maybe like alumni or like a professor to read over your resume, and then maybe ask them to help you with it. And then also there's career centers at your school that you can utilize. You're having your counselor will be there to help you. And there's even like community resource center, like search up your local community resource center, and I'm sure there's always there's going to be like plenty of resources. And always check your local library as well. And yeah, so you really want to focus on your content of your resume, make sure that there's no errors, and really work and be consistent in your resume. There's no perfect resume, just remember that. And everyone is different, so don't like stress about that so much. Like, is my resume like, don't think about like comparing your resume to like someone else's. Everyone has like will have like a unique resume. And yeah, so thank you so much, and I will hand it over to Maya.
Well, actually, Tina, before we start the cover letter sections, sorry, Maya, we will just quickly mention that there is a worksheet that was posted in the chat. I will quickly post the link really quickly for anyone that's interested in following along the presentation with the worksheet. It will be emailed to everybody here that's currently right now watching this presentation, but for anyone that's watching the recording of this, there will be a link to the YouTube, to the worksheet in the YouTube description for anyone that's watching a recording of this. But yeah, anyway, we will continue the presentation, and yeah, Maya, take it away, please.
Awesome, thank you so much, Gabe. So hi, my name is Maya / Akin, and my pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'll be presenting on cover letters. So before we get started, I wanted to ask everyone if you could please fill out this Mentimeter just to gauge like what y'all think a cover letter is. Do you have experience in it? So on the Mentimeter, you can also scan with your QR code, or you can input the code onto menti.com, and I'll put it in the chat as well. And you can input that code and pretty much fill it out, and I will give us about 1 minute to fill it out and see the responses. And if you are watching this from a recording, unfortunately, the code does expire in 2 days. So if you're like, oh shoot, it is, what's today, it's April 14th, and you're like, oh no, the code doesn't work. Do not worry. Feel free to message us, and we will send you the Mentimeter if you would like to participate. And yeah, I'll give it 1 minute. Awesome. So based on some responses that are coming in, I see like paragraphs, formal to putting dates. Yeah, definitely. You want it to be formal, and you want it to be about like a page, I would say. Usually your cover letter is no longer than a page unless requested, but most of the time, if your cover letters, you want to keep them to a page. And yeah, actually, since we have gotten a good amount of responses, I will be moving along. So what is a cover letter? Yeah, what's a cover letter? So according to my research, it is a dating profile. So imagine when you go on an online date and you're like, whoa, I want to date this person. What do they have to offer, and what do you have to offer them? This is a mutualistic relationship. It's not a one-sided love story. So you want to make sure that you are presenting yourself as what I can do for the company. Like, for example, applying to a marketing position. I'm done 20 years of marketing, but you also want to say, but I want to gain from maybe an international perspective on marketing. So that is something you want to think about when you make your cover letter. It's also your first impression. As Tina mentioned, these are really papers just to get you through the first process. Before you get onto the interview, they're going to want to know who you are, and this is the way they do so. So make sure you're polite, you are grammar free, that you are putting your signatures at the end, and we will be talking more about what specific parts need to be in each section. It is also giving details on why you are fit for the job, on why they're fit for you. Again, it's a dating profile. You want to make sure that this is a mutualistic relationship. And also it gives insight beyond your resume. So what that means is maybe you're talking about these values that are important to you. When you're in a resume, you can't really be like, the values, because your resume is about you. The cover letter is showing that you've actually done your research on the company, that you know what they stand for and how you align with them. And yeah, I put in these memes like, seriously, do your research, because it's so important to do your research and actually put the correct organization on your cover letter. And this one says, a cover letter is like a letter of recommendation for yourself. And that's true. If no one's going to advocate for you except for yourself. So be your biggest advocate and your biggest cheerleader. And yeah, also just want to put the point together that a cover letter is catered to the company. You're doing your research for the specific position, for the specific organization. So make sure that it really shows and it's tailored to the company. And yeah, does anyone have any questions? 3, 2, 1. Awesome, we'll be moving along. So what is it not? Now that you know what a resume, now that you know what a cover letter is, hopefully you will learn what a cover letter is not. Wow, this is not my day. So I put all these memes. I was gonna put on the slide, but I just think they're funny on their own. But it's like, back in my day, cover letters did not include emoticons. Remember, formality. It is so important that you're doing a formal. Unfortunately, not everyone has access to all the emojis in the world. So if you're using one and someone's unfamiliar, might not go to your strong point. Yeah, your cover letter, you know, you had this resume at Subway, but your cover letter's for KFC. KFC is not Subway. Make sure you're doing the right organization and that you're really double checking. Also, it says emails, cover letter for job, and forgets to change the company name and date from the last job application. Yes, again, thorough. It is tailored for that job and that position. So make sure that you really go through it before you push that send button. And yeah, it's not something you write in 15 minutes. Take your time, you know, really want to introduce yourself well. And it's honestly really hard to make a cover letter and do a good one in 15 minutes. Even if you're super well versed, you made like 200 cover letters, 15 minutes is a time crunch that you don't need. So plan in advance, do it a week before, or hopefully more weeks beforehand. And yeah, this is just like hire me. You also don't want it to be like, oh, I need this job. This is why I want it. You want to make sure that you are presenting yourself well and that you're presenting that you have all these things to offer, but they also have a reason to want to hire you. And so yeah, barring the means, it is not a 2-page cover letter. So, and again, you generally want to keep this to a page. It is not a letter to your best friend. You are not sending a text message. This is formal. Also, your cover letter is in paragraph format. Apologies for that. And something you can send to, it is not something you can send to other companies or organizations. So you're not going, again, you want us to tailor to the organization. Don't send it to other companies. If you're gonna do that, make sure you do your research, change the name, and then you should be good to go. And yeah, it's not a story of your life. Even though your life and your narrative is extremely personal and interesting, not every company has time to read your entire life story. Often they look at these things for maybe 30 seconds max, and then they go to the next one because they have thousands of applicants. So you want to make sure that you're really putting out those strong points of yourself. And yeah, just make sure you are your best cheerleader, your best self-advocate. Yeah, does anyone have any questions? I know I'm going to the next slide, but before, does anyone have any questions or concerns? And if I'm ever talking too fast, feel free to ask.
I have a
Hi.
quick question. Does the cover letters can you do like bullet points or just or you could just keep writing?
I would definitely say, in a lot of examples, they give you like paragraph format, but for example, your first body paragraph is why you're perfect. This is the things you've done and accumulated. So you can put bullet points in between. It's just you have to make it mostly paragraph. So actually bullet points are really great because it breaks up the cover letter for the reader. So I don't know, I get really tired if I just read words all the time. So it's a really great idea to add bullet points. I would just say maybe only list 3 to 4 to 5 max, but no more than 5 bullet points. You want to stop there and make sure it's, again, like a letter format. But yeah, that's a great question. Thanks so much.
If I could actually interject. Yeah, thank you so much for your question, Carlos. So true to its name, a cover letter should look more like a letter. So as Akin said, bullet points might be interesting visually and easier visually, but I would recommend for a more formal business setting, if you're applying to a more formal workplace, you might want to err on the side of caution and actually do like a formal letter. So you're going to be looking more at paragraphs. I know that visually it's a little bit more daunting, but it's more formal and it's just like the safest bet. For something like bullet points, that's more characteristic of a resume. So if you are going to do it in a cover letter, do it very sparingly and only for certain contexts. So like if you are presenting like certain accomplishments, like maybe listing off some accomplishments that you achieved in your job, then you could use it in that way, but definitely do more paragraphs, as Akin said.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Caitlin, for helping me answer that. And thank you so much, Carlos, for that question. So yeah, does anyone else have any questions before we move on? 3, 2, 1. Awesome. So I made this little Venn diagram about cover letters and resumes. And since we have about 10 minutes left, I will be going through a little quickly. So please bear with me. So this is cover letters. You need your introduction, body, conclusion. Again, tailored. You definitely want a specific for the company you're applying to, and it has a standard format. So unlike resumes, like Tina was saying earlier, you can have a little bit of variation depending on the field you're going into, but generally cover letters are very similar, or there's like maybe 1 to 2 bullet points, as Caitlin was saying sparingly. So yeah, it definitely has a standard format that you want to do. And you have to be really friendly. You know, it's like, hi, my name is, this is what I like to do. Thank you for your time. You definitely want to be friendly in your cover letter. And as opposed to a resume, it's more like you list your education, again, a listing of work experience and more. It's also tailored more for your field and position rather than the company. I definitely know when I'm applying to a lot of food positions, they'll often look the same, but my cover letter has to be different because what I do at McDonald's is not the same thing that I do at Carl's Jr. They don't serve French fries that are known as the best French fries in the world in Carl's Jr. So yeah, and you also want to also resumes have varying formats. So again, it can have maybe different ways it's structured over the IC, but then in cover letters, again, paragraph format, and resumes are definitely straight to the point in the sense that they're literally bullet points. So yeah, both are 1 page long. They both have your contact info. They both include work that you have done in the past, and they are both concise. So regardless, you want to be very transparent, clear with your words, and you want to make sure you get your point across. Yeah, those are the big differences between a resume and a cover letter. So moving along. So what do you need for it? So what do you need for a cover letter? I made this ingredient list for a cover letter pie. And so it's telling what you will need. And if you ever need me to send this to you, feel free. I love sharing recipes. So this is, you will need 1 heading. You want to make sure you don't forget your name and your contact. You want one salutation, so be cordial. That's literally a salutation. It's like, hi, dear, for example, dear Miss Wong, comma, you know. And then your opening paragraph, that's where you're gonna grab their attention. You're gonna make them wanna actually get to know you and read the rest of your paragraphs. And your second paragraph is like why you will benefit the company and what you have to offer. Your third paragraph is more like why the company will benefit you and what skills that, or maybe like what titles that they have or opportunities that you're seeking for. And your closing paragraph, which is you're re-emphasizing everything. You're summarizing why you're a good fit, why this company in specific is great for you, and why this job is something you want to hopefully get and get an interview into. And you also have your formal closing. That is your call to action. So that's like saying, oh, I thank you so much, and I hope to hear from you soon, or I hope to interview with you soon. So that's what the call to action in your formal closing will be. So moving along is more, and does anyone have any questions before I move on to this question checklist? 2, 1. Awesome. So for the question checklist, I made this more as a way to think about what you want to think when you're applying to a job. So it's also something you should consider writing in your cover letter. So what jobs are you applying for? Making sure that you put this in the opening paragraph. Who is your employer? Research the hiring manager, the recruiter's name, and state it when possible. You definitely want to do your research in general, but this is something that's really important. Usually you can just type in, like, for example, Chase Bank, Los Angeles, or wherever you're going to, and put like hiring manager. Or you can even call in and ask, hey, like, who's your hiring manager? I want to make a cover letter and send it to the right person. You also want to mention, if you were referred by anyone, make sure to mention them and do so. You also want to state why you're qualified and any experiences in particular that pertain to the actual job. So not just random experiences, but why specific experience make you a good candidate. Yeah, and why the company and organization, do they have a mission statement, and what values are similar to yours? That's really important because it not only shows that you're doing your research, but again, you're catering to that company and you're really making sure that you emphasize how you're a great fit. Yeah, does anyone have any questions for that? 2, 1, crickets. Awesome. So here is an example of a perfect cover letter. This is also from Glassdoor, and Glassdoor, as Tina stated, is A+. It also helps you know, like, if a company is right for you in terms of like fit. So I love Glassdoor. But anyways, this is an example. You see like the letterhead where it's that person's name. You have their address of the hiring company, and you'll also have the date. And it says like, greeting, dear Mr. Smith. You have your body paragraphs here. So it's body paragraph 1 is like, oh, there's your hook. You can see that this person here says that they've been privileged to work in numbers of environments and they did not hesitate. So that makes them like, oh, they really want to work at our company and want to get this job. You have your body paragraphs again. This is where you will list or more, you will like write in paragraph format about your positions, and if it is appropriate, maybe put like 1 to 2 bullet points. But yeah, you will be saying like what projects you've participated in, the skills, and also the impact it's had. So if you've gone through something really rigorous, like starting your own organization at like Yale University, for example, and you had like 300 members, what did that teach you, you know? Kind of show how you learn from these experiences in a quick and succinct manner. And you have, again, your conclusion, which is your, this is what I've done. Thank you so much. And this person put that you can reach them at this email. So again, a call to action and your signature. You want to put sincerely or best regards, whatever fits you best. And you want to put your name as well as your actual signature when possible. So yeah. Any questions before we go in more in depth into what we need? Awesome. So what do you need? So for the heading, you want to include your name, your email, and the date. The name of the hiring manager, as said previously, you want to make sure you're catering this and making sure you're sending it to the right company. So try to search out the hiring manager and the address of the company as well. And it's optional, but you could put links to professional websites. Again, it depends on what field you're in. If you're in the art or you're submitting your portfolio, a link to your professional website is a great way to do so. Also, a phone number is great. It's optional, but definitely if you want to, or if it's appropriate, please put your phone number, as it's a great way for them to contact you. Your salutation, again, is where it says like, dear, title, last name, and then your title plus the last name, or also known as the family name. And then you put, when you don't know who the hiring manager is, you would want to put something like, dear hiring manager. Try not to put not to whom this may concern, because you kind of have to know that it's going to be through the hiring team or the hiring committee. So yeah. And then this duck says, when applying for a job, do not begin your cover letters with dear sirs. We're not trying to assume pronouns, and we're not also trying to assume who they are. So yeah, try to figure out their name. If not, put dear hiring manager. So any questions? Awesome. Cool. So for the opening, you want to be direct, and you want to also be sure that you're interesting. Say something that stands out, like if you fundraise $1 million for victims of domestic violence, put that. Numbers are a great way to grab attention, especially in a paragraph format where you're just looking at these little characters. So it's a great way to put numbers when appropriate and possible. Also, you want to state what roles you're applying for. So any references, any relevant experience, put that in briefly within the first 1 to 2 sentences. Again, a tip is to be enthusiastic. You know, you want to make this a personal anecdote, you want to put in like a personal anecdote or your story. You want to be relatable, and you want to state an accomplishment. So moving along, there are usually 2 body paragraphs. Your first body paragraph is explaining why you want to join that organization. Again, catering to that organization and their mission. What skills that you have that will benefit that company. So let's say that company is doing really bad in international sales, and you have a lot of experience in the international business realm. That is something you want to put onto your body paragraph of your cover letter to really highlight why you are fit for the job. Again, you want to list what you've done. It says you can list accomplishment in bullet points, but as Caitlin said, that's depending on how appropriate it is. If you are unsure, it's always best to just state in paragraph format. And again, you want to capitalize on your strengths. You really want to highlight the good things you've done and not really the bad. This is not the point where you're trying to say, this is the lesson I've learned. Like, no bad points, only good. For your body paragraph, you just want to state how that you don't want to work at just any company, but specifically that company. Like, for example, why do you want to work at KRC? Because KRC really embodies what it means to have immigrant rights in a holistic as well as like a political way. So something like that. or you can write why that company will benefit you briefly. So again, if you you've worked 20 years already in research, but you've never worked at a state and a public sponsored school, then you'd be like, I want to work at somewhere where it's a public school instead of private. Again, what part of their mission statement and values resonate with you? You're doing this research, you want to make sure that you are showing that you've done that research. So again, cater to that organization, to that job, and really emphasize how their values resonate with you in the second body paragraph. Since we only have like 2 minutes, I will just go through the closing. So the closing, it reemphasizes why this a mutualistic deal, why you're fit, why they fit for you, that kind of rule. And then you also want to state how your skills and talents make you successful. So let's say like you're a great speaker, be like, well, because I'm a great speaker, I'm able to communicate transparently and really emphasize the main speaking points. That is a great way to restate how your skills and talents make you successful. You want to also express your enthusiasm, so about a follow-up and how you're looking forward to discussing how you can be a crucial asset to the company. So saying like, I hope to hear from you soon and feel free to reach out. This is my email, or my email is listed above. That is sorry, I put a timer just to make sure I'm on time, but that is a great way for you to really show that you want to do a follow-up. And again, it's a call to action. And then stating that you would like an opportunity for an interview. Of course, you don't want to be like really bold and be like, I deserve an interview, but just saying like, don't do that. Please don't ever be like, I need this interview, but just say, I hope that we can interview in the future soon, and I hope to get to meet you more. And yeah, your formal closing. Make sure you say thank you, say, have a great day. That's a great way to tell someone that you actually are thinking about them. Say like something like, sincerely and best regards, put your first name, last name, and then your signature. It's proper business etiquette, but especially if online forms, they might not allow you to. So definitely try to when possible. And yeah, takeaways and tips. Emphasize your personal value. Really make sure that you're tailoring this to the job and that organization. You don't want it to be just anywhere. So make sure you're really doing your research on that place, why you want to work at that specific job, that specific location. Get your friends to proofread, if you have friends or professional mentors who are able to proofread it, please do, because staring at a cover letter for like hours, yeah, your eyes are gonna miss something, most likely. You also don't want to sound needy. The company needs you and not the other way around, and that's what you're trying to prove. You want to go beyond your resume, so underscore what those experience has taught you, explain why you want to join that organization, what skills that you have that will benefit that company, again, mutualistic and being tailored into that company. And what have you done in the past? List those 1 to 3 accomplishments in paragraph format, bullet point if you're really, really sure, but paragraph format to be safe. And yeah, it should look like a professional business letter. Your font should match your resume. So that's like a really great tip. You don't want it to be like in cursive on your cover letter and then in Times New Roman on your resume. And yeah, just try to use your numbers. All words can be tiring. So when you can, put in those statistics that make you a great candidate. And overall, yeah, tips for your resume and your cover letter. Again, both of these should be catering to the job, catering to the organization. You want to proofread it. You want to take your time. Don't do it within a few hours. Take a few days. Quality over quantity. You are really capitalizing on the specific strengths and the things that are fit for that company and that job you're applying for, rather than just all these random things that you're listing. And use numbers when possible and research the company. And yeah, I believe that is all the time we have. Just thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that, Tina and Maya, for presenting this amazing workshop. I know we're kind of running a long time, so I just want to briefly, just thank anybody that's tuning in to watch this, as well as anyone that's watching the recordings for this. And I will also like to mention KRC's sort of social media plugin for anyone that's interested in future events. And the social media tag for their Instagram is KRC_LA_org. I'm gonna put it in the chat for anyone that's interested, but yeah, it's the Instagram social media tag is KRC_LA_org for anyone that's interested for future events or any resources that we provide as an organization. And yeah, anyway, I want to thank again Tina and Maya and Kaylin for this amazing workshop, and anyone that's tuning in and watching the recording. And thank you so much for your time.
Bye, take care.